Well, we were just talking about rare earth and that discussion point between the U.S. and China. The stocks here in the U.S. are taking a tumble as those trade tensions ease between the two nations. We saw those names rally on reports that China was considering export controls on their rare earth materials, pushing President Trump to threaten 100% tariffs on Chinese goods and focus on U.S. development in this space. So what is now the investment case for those stocks? Joining me now on this, Neal Dingmann, analyst at William Blair, who covers these stocks. Neal, it's great to see you. Wow, there have been a lot of headlines around this space and a lot of interest in this space. And today we did get some news out of Southeast Asia that the president is looking into some deals with those nations on rare earth minerals. So I guess, first of all, just set the backdrop for us as to the homegrown industry here and what the backdrop is for them.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, Julie. The backdrop is still very difficult domestically because you think about 70% of the mining still comes from China. About 90% of the processed or oxides of the rare earth comes from China, and about 93% of the magnets. So again, the way I looked at it is, looking at this over the weekend, some sort of concession is likely not going to be terribly negative. In fact, going to be necessary because the timing it's going to take for the U.S. or other U.S. allies, Latin American countries or anybody else to ramp up these needed rare earths, it's going to take time and going to be very necessary. So again, as one of my companies mentioned recently when I was with them, they're not able to compete with China by any means in the foreseeable future. Anything that they're going to supply is going to be 2 to 3 times the cost. But I think it's still going to be very necessary, again, to have some sort of concessions from China in order to have something come to the U.S.
So, and do you think that even if there is some sort of agreement inked this week or whenever it is, that there will still be an emphasis by this administration on investing in these companies? I mean, do you think basically any rare earth company based in the U.S. is a potential recipient of investment dollars from the administration?
Absolutely. I think maybe not necessarily a direct stake as they've done with MP and some others, but at least I think some sort of backstop is going to be necessary for the U.S. companies to continue to build out either the far end, which is the magnets, or the middle part, which is again the processing or the oxides, or even to start with the mining side, with the very front end of that. So again, why I'd prefer a lot of the companies wouldn't take a direct stake. I would prefer, again, and I think it's going to be necessary that the government comes in with some form or fashion of a backstop to make sure that these continue to get built out in the U.S.
Neal, as you mentioned, it's a long time before maybe some of these mines would even begin production. So do you see them as sort of a short-term, more tactical holding for people? Or do you think this is a long haul thing? But if that's the case, how long do people have to wait for that stuff to bear fruit?
I think it'll be a combination. I think if you're just playing a U.S. company that it's going to just stick purely domestically, it is going to take a while. You're talking probably a minimum of 2 to 3 years. I think what you might see, much like the president signed 4 other agreements with Southeast Asian countries, which again means that potentially a U.S. company could partner with any or all of those, Vietnam and you name it. There's talks about, he was in Australia last week, they could partner with somebody like that. So I think to expedite the timing, any of these domestic U.S. companies potentially partner with a non-Chinese company and really expedite the timing. Then you're maybe talking a year, maybe 2 at most, whereas if a U.S. company decides to go at it on their own, as I said, you've got companies like Nowcorp that said, the minute we get funding, it's going to take us 3 years to build out our mine.
Right.
So again, I think these allied partnerships are going to be a key behind this.
What is still the risk, Neal, that even if you get U.S. processors going, miners, at whatever stage, the risk in the past, and one of the reasons that these U.S. companies have had so much trouble capitalizing, is that China can kind of flood the market, right, and bring prices down. So is all of this contingent on a U.S.-China agreement that prevents that from happening?
it's going to be a total prevention, but again, part of that is going to have to be some form or fashion where the U.S. companies, the users, the end user, the defense, EVs, you name it, auto industry, anything that uses magnets is going to have to source U.S. Again, if they want to just go after lowest price in the foreseeable future, yes, they're going to try to do an end around and maybe try to go through some of the Chinese production. But again, I think it's going to be necessary that the government also, in some form or fashion, works with on the demand side. Maybe somebody you're talking about an EV or somebody that uses these goods, maybe give them some sort of benefit by using domestic magnets versus just going to end around and using the Chinese magnets.
Neal, we've been showing your picks here. It's NeoCorp, USA Rare Earth, American Resources, Royalty Management, US Antimony are the various picks. Do you have a favorite, or do you just think it's safest to sort of buy the basket?
I think the one that is probably nearest term is USAR, USA Rare Earth. Why I say that is they just recently purchased, they haven't closed yet, on a very strategic UK company called LCM, Less Common Metals, that is going to provide the metals and alloys. Number two, they have a very large magnet factory in Stillwater, Oklahoma, not far from here in Houston, that's going to start up right around year end. So again, I think it's going to be very critical, no pun intended, when both of those, the acquisition in UK gets completed and when the U.S. magnet facility begins production, which is going to be sooner than later.